Are probably the perfect protein for chickens that are trying to be raised, but I wouldn't recommend them for human consumption.
Perfect fat, lots of fat in eggs, lots of cholesterol in eggs. There's no mandate to eat eggs at all. They are high in fat, high in cholesterol, and you don't need the cholesterol. Your body makes all the cholesterol you need, by the way. That's another myth. And better to not eat eggs and substitute with some great big bowl of oatmeal with blueberries and bananas. Much better breakfast than eggs.
People have this conception that eggs are the perfect protein. Once again, so again, if you think about food through this lens of nutrition reductionism, so think about your food as calories, right? So, the calories are money. So you've got 2,000 calories or $2,000 to spend today. And you can spend it however you want. You could spend it on broccoli, you could spend it on eggs, you could spend it on olive oil, you could spend it on an apple, piece of steak. And you decide you want to invest your calories in an egg because you heard that's a great source of protein. So what's your nutritional return on investment? Most of us, when we invest our money, we want to get the highest return on investment, the highest ROI you can get. So what's your nutritional return on investment for 100 calories of egg besides protein? How much fiber is in 100 calories of eggs? 0. How much vitamin C? 0. How much cancer-fighting antioxidants, polyphenols? 0. So if you decided to invest that 100 calories in broccoli, right? 100 calories of broccoli has almost 7 grams of protein. And what else does it have? A ton of fiber. It has antioxidants and vitamin C and vitamin E. So which one's going to be your higher return on investment?
The perfect protein is a protein that contains a lot of arginine that stimulates our brown fat and our AMP kinase, and that's found mainly in plant foods.
I think of eggs as the metabolic triple whammy. And the reason I say that is for 3 reasons. Number 1, eggs have a ton of saturated fat. So in the yolk itself is predominantly saturated fat. Number 2, eggs contain a significant amount of cholesterol. And if you believe that humans are not supposed to eat cholesterol, which I absolutely do, that your liver can regulate total cholesterol metabolism, then the amount of cholesterol that you get from a single egg can overwhelm your liver and actually lead to high blood cholesterol. So we got saturated fat, we got cholesterol, and then third, we have a whopping dose of ovalbumin, which is the protein found in the egg white. So it's called the perfect protein because egg whites lead to, they're incorporated incredibly well into mammals. And so it is a true statement, you will absorb more ovalbumin than you will the protein that you get from a banana or the protein that you'll get from a piece of broccoli. But it doesn't matter because we're not looking for large amounts of protein are not necessary, and the highest absorbable protein is not always going to be king.
Eating eggs is the absolute perfect way to raise your level of insulin-like growth factor 1, the most powerful growth promoting factor known to biology. And if you have a little breast cancer or a prostate cancer in your tissues, that's like throwing gasoline on a fire. The yolk of a hen's egg is the most concentrated glom of fat and cholesterol on the planet, and it certainly can raise your risk of heart attacks and strokes. As I said, the egg yolk is concentrated protein that can injure the kidneys and foster cancer growth. It's time to let the chickens have their little chickies and for us to stop eating their eggs.
Someone pointed out to me one time what an egg actually is, and it really highlighted why it is such a dense source of really bad things, but also things like protein. The egg houses the makings for an animal who has a beak, who has eyes, who has talons, feathers, a heart, a liver. All of that is inside that little egg. So of course it's going to have an incredible amount of protein, fat, cholesterol, because it has to make this animal. And you just don't need such a dense source of nutrients, especially harmful nutrients like dietary cholesterol, saturated fat, in one thing. And if nobody here is suffering from a protein deficiency, so why do we need to go to something that houses so many unhealthful components when we can get our protein from plants?
This fear of not getting enough protein is totally unfounded. How many people do you know have an actually diagnosed protein deficiency? Most people are going to say none. there actually isn't a common name for that. I think the regular name is kwashiorkor. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's just something that doesn't happen in our society. So, but a joke that you'll hear a lot in the vegan community is, how do doctors test to see if somebody has enough protein? They see if their patient walked into the office. If they walked in the office, they have enough protein.
Listen, you know, there's only two things bad about eggs, the white and the yolk, and actually three, the shell probably. The truth is eggs are the menstrual cycle of a chicken, and I don't want to eat anybody's menstrual period. That's just gross. But no, I mean, it's chicken. I mean, it's the perfect protein. I mean, the perfect protein is plant protein. Who says it's the perfect protein? I mean, I guess the egg board wants you to think that. But you know, there's so much inhumanity in animal production. But even if there weren't, it's like eggs. The concept of eggs is just one of the grossest things to me. Even when I've only been vegan for 40 years, but even before I was vegan, I would not eat an egg because I knew what it was, and it was disgusting. And sometimes you'd crack them open, there'd be like blood in it. It's just like, I mean, that is just gross. I'm sorry. I mean, eating all animals is gross, but eggs, I mean, it's like, I think of like, would you eat a woman's menstrual cycle? Because that's what an egg is. Ugh.
Eggs have been shown to be harmful. They increase one's risk of prostate cancer. They increase a person's cholesterol and their risk for heart disease. You know, this all goes back to this idea that the place we need to get our protein is from animal sources. And as we've learned, or as we've known for a long time, we get more than adequate protein in the plant-based foods that we eat. Spinach and kale are between 30 to 50% protein in terms of their calories. And that's why when we look at these beautiful animals, such as the gorilla and the horse and the buffalo, eating plant-based foods, they're getting all the protein that they need. So, you know, I would rephrase that to say the perfect protein is in the plants that we eat.
It's absolutely not the perfect protein. Let's just look at what an egg is. The hen lays the egg. And that egg has no external source of nutrients until that egg hatches. So that egg is very, very rich in nutrients. And it's very rich in saturated fat, in cholesterol, it's high in protein, it's rich in all of those things, but it's too much for us. We don't need that much. I like to answer the egg question with the human breast milk question. Now, I'm not suggesting that an adult drink human breast milk, but we look at human breast milk for infants. And the protein concentration in human breast milk is about 6 or 7%. It's very, very low compared to the protein concentration in any form of dairy milk, whether it's from a cow or a goat. You're seeing a very low amount of proteins. And human breast milk is mostly fat and carbohydrate. So you don't need to worry about the protein. So our bodies are not designed to have a huge amount of protein relative to carbohydrates and fats. So with respect to eggs, it's too much nutrition for us, and it does clog our arteries, and you begin to see the beginnings of heart disease even in children. So for example, kids that have met the unfortunate fate of dying as a child, when autopsies are done and their vessels are looked at, it's very common to find streaks and heart disease in a young child who's not yet expressing outward symptoms, but will probably express them as they get older. So we need to keep our vessels clean. And not only are the coronary arteries important to keep clean, but all the vessels below the waist. I mean, just look at how many prescriptions there are for Viagra and Cialis for men that are having problems with erectile dysfunction, because that artery in the penis is only 1 millimeter in diameter, and the coronary arteries are 2 millimeters in diameter. So the first bellwether sign is to suffer from erectile dysfunction. And it's not only the vessels below the waist, it's all the vessels, you know, in your heart, but also that go to your brain, that go to your eye, that go to your kidneys. These are all important vessels to keep clean. And if we're eating a very high saturated fat, very high cholesterol diet, that is a precursor for heart disease.
If you want to suggest what might be the best protein for humans, for us, the most perfect protein, well, it would be your neighbor. You know, eat your neighbor, eat your friend, because that's protein with the amino acid structure that's most closely like you. But you're not going to do that, hopefully. And the eggs are the perfect protein for baby chickens, but we spoke about trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO. And when you eat the yolks of eggs, that also helps to select for the gut bacteria that lead to the formation of TMAO. So when you eat more of the yolks of eggs, you make more TMAO. There are large epidemiologic studies with hundreds of thousands of people. One of them in particular by Dr. Song out of Harvard showed that for every if you lower your caloric intake of eggs by 3% and you replace it with 3% of protein from plant sources, you lower your hazard of mortality by 19%. Just 3% of your calories from eggs, replacing it with 3% of calories from plants, lowers your hazard of death by 19%. Now, and the egg whites themselves are incredibly animal protein dense, and that can increase levels of insulin-like growth factor in your body, which may help promote cancer growth. So your neighbor is your perfect protein, but your body will make the perfect protein out of the incredible building blocks that plants will give it.
The egg board continues to find these really slimy, they basically construct the study design in a way to get the result they want. And it's just obvious. It's obvious to anyone who knows, but it's not obvious to someone just reading the paper. It's like, oh, this isn't a problem. But then you see how they did the study and you recognize the biology and you realize, oh, that's outrageous, should never have been published.
Eggs have been marketed to be the perfect protein. And the reason people even think of that phrase is from the egg industry marketing their product. Their goal is to sell as many eggs as they possibly can. And so they have framed it very successfully as the perfect protein. So there's a big marketing effort to make people believe that eggs are crucial to health, and in fact they're not.